After 1851, a hidden truth revealed, the incredible vengeance of a child's heart for justice. Clara stood at the edge of town, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched the sun rise over the cornfields. Golden rays highlighted the simple homes that lined the main street, where laughter once erupted with each dawn. But today, there was only an unsettling silence. At just 12 years old, she felt the weight of the world on her small shoulders, watching her father Joe toil at the forge, his hands blistered and weary. The happiness that once accompanied their life was replaced by the specter of despair. The signs of an American dream slipping away had become achingly clear. Joe, once the pride of the town with his remarkable craftsmanship and warm smile, now labored in shadows, overlooked by those blessed with fat purses and a life of ease. Clara remembered the whispers of disdain that slipped past her father's lips late at night, the quiet resolve that held the family together despite the growing tension. It gnawed at her. Why couldn't the world see her father's value? The old American spirit flickered like a ranting candle, searching for a breath of air. With the harvest festival approaching, an idea sparked. Clara envisioned transforming the field by the old oak tree into a vibrant celebration of local craftsmanship, a place where the sweat of their labor could shine. She approached the townsfolk, her voice trembling yet fierce. "Let us honor our workers. Let us unite," she declared, but the laughter that met her was like cold rain. The elite, secure in their wealth, didn't want to share their spotlight. Yet doubt only hardened Clara's resolve as she envisioned her father's tired eyes lit with pride and the lonely war veteran down the street yearning for connection. Clara rallied a few friends, fellow children who understood sacrifice and toil, who shared stories of their family's struggles. Each tale fortified her belief. Together, they painted colorful banners and crafted simple decorations, the vibrant materials a symbol of their determination. As whispers grew, Clara felt the stirrings of hope, yet she sensed the powerful hands of the elite tightening around their throats. Just when Clara believed she was gaining ground, shadows descended upon their efforts. The wealthy began planting roots of fear among the townsfolk, warning them of upheaval should the festival succeed. Clara felt their influence enveloping her like a storm cloud. Tears welled in her eyes as the whisper of doubt crashed over her, yet deep within, a fire ignited against the injustice. It was a battle for dignity, for her father, and the veteran whose story still lingered among the faded names of honor in town. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Clara stood before the townsfolk at the gathering, her heart raced. The air around her crackled with tension. We must not turn away. The dignity of every laborer is worth fighting for. She could scarcely hear herself above the pounding of her heart. Gasps echoed through the crowd, some nodded, others frowned. Clara felt the stakes rising. The struggle for the heart of their small town was brewing. Would they stand with her against the wealthy elite and claim their dignity, or wither in fear, letting complacency suffocate them all? For the first time, Clara realized that this fight was not only about her father, but the promise of a better future for everyone. Would they dare to rise together? The tension hung thick as Clara waited for a response, her gaze bouncing from familiar face to familiar face. Would their expressions reflect the pain she felt, or would they hold the weight of their silence? She felt her pulse quicken, a steady rhythm of hope clashing against the fear swirling in the air. This was a moment that could either ignite a flame or snuff it out completely. Finally, old Mr. Thompson, the town's grizzled carpenter, stepped forward. His weathered face cracked into a smile that belied a lifetime of hard work. "Clara," he said, his voice gravelly but warm, "you've got spirit, girl, and we've been too quiet too long. If anyone can awaken us from this nightmare, it's you." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, igniting a flicker of hope in her chest. Clara straightened her back, heart hammering with renewed energy. Yes, they could do this together. Then let us show them what we can create. She urged, the words bursting forth like sunlight piercing the clouds. The murmurs swelled, emboldening her. Each voice that joined hers lit a flame of resistance against the oppressive silence that had weighed so heavily on their community. Yet even as this newfound courage surged through her, worry lingered. What if it was not enough? What if their small rebellion against the elite would lead to more fear, more oppression? Would they be brave if faced with real consequences? Understanding the stakes had never felt heavier on her small shoulders. That night, Clara lay in bed, the ceiling above her dimly lit by the moon's glow. She listened to her father's laboring breaths, each exhale echoing an unspoken story of struggle that resonated deep within her heart. She remembered his hands, calloused and achingly devoted, and the warmth of his embrace when she had needed it most. She felt the tears build again. This wasn't just about a festival, it was a desperate attempt to breathe dignity back into their town. The buzzing of a firefly flitted across her window, momentarily capturing her gaze. It flickered, tiny but fiercely determined. Inspired by its defiance against the night, she pulled herself up. She needed to call for reinforcements. The next day, she would visit the soldiers, her dad's old friends, the veterans who had sacrificed so much for the town. They had seen battle, and surely their resilience could be summoned against this new sort of enemy. At dawn, Clara crept out and made her way to the veterans' reunion spot, a weathered old barn just beyond the edge of town. The faint smell of the earth after rain filled the air as she approached, the morning dewdrops catching the early sunlight like scattered diamonds. As she entered the barn, the murmured conversations paused. The men, sitting on barrels and crates, turned their attention to her, revealing weathered faces that carried stories heavier than the equipment they'd once used in wartime. These were men who had fought for honor, surely they could stand for justice in their own town. Mr. Wilkins. Mr. Barker. She called, her voice steady. I need your help. Our town needs your strength. Will you stand with us? Their eyes sparkled with curiosity and an echo of the fierce spirit from their youth. But would they answer her call? Would they lend their strength to the little girl fighting for justice? She could feel the breath of possibility painting her world vibrant, yet fear shadowed the edges. Would the veterans be willing to conjure the courage that had once driven them into battle for something so seemingly small? As she stared into their eyes, poised precariously on the edge of hope, Clara felt a tremor run through her, filled with the promise of bravery or the fear of rejection. But what she didn't expect was someone from within the crowd, someone she had never counted on, to step forward and change everything. A tall figure emerged from the shadows. Sammy, the mayor's son. Clara's heart raced with disbelief. Sammy was always more focused on parties and popularity than the struggles of ordinary people. He lit the room with an energy that was both surprising and unsettling as he confidently walked toward her. I'll help you, Clara, he declared, his voice ringing clear and loud. I know folks listen to me. If we can raise their spirits, we can bring back the festival. Show them we won't be silenced. Gasps rippled through the barn, and Clara felt a mix of elation and caution. Sammy stood there, eyes bright, as if he had shed the weighty expectations that had always loomed over him. What's in it for you? She instinctively asked, suspicion knotting her stomach. Was this just a ploy for attention? I'm tired of my dad's shadow, he responded. I want to do something real, something that matters. This town isn't just a backdrop for my social life. People are hurting. Clara studied him, searching for any hint of deceit, but instead found sincerity reflected in his gaze. All right, she said finally, her voice firmer than she felt inside. But we need everyone. We need to band together. Will you rally support? Sammy nodded, determination carved into his features. The thrill of shared purpose danced in the air around them. The pair brainstormed for hours, hammering out ideas that opened the floodgates of creativity. They decided on a town meeting, inviting everyone to share their thoughts, their hopes. They could no longer hide in shadows, it was time to rise. As they made their plans, Clara couldn't help but think of her father and the struggles he'd faced. "You know, my dad always said, you can't fight a battle if you don't know your enemy." Sammy crossed his arms, "So let us expose them." "Who are they, though?" "The elite? The ones who keep everyone in fear." "Exactly," Clara agreed, energy pooling in her chest. "They think we're weak alone, but a united town is a powerful one." With that fire in her belly, she could sense not only the collective strength growing but also a camaraderie she hadn't expected. Over the next few days, Clara and Sammy worked tirelessly to print flyers, spreading the word. When the day arrived for the meeting, the excitement in Clara's heart sparked apprehension. She stood at the front, flanked by Sammy and old Mr. Thompson, surrounded by the familiar faces of her neighbors, friends, and those who had been hesitant before. "Today," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies swirling in her stomach, "is about us." She glanced at the crowd, its energy palpable. "We can reclaim not just a festival but our dignity. Together, we are strong. Together, we are unstoppable." An enthusiastic cheer erupted from the group, lifting Clara's spirits high. But a shadow flickered across her thoughts. Would everyone feel the same once they faced the backlash from the powerful? Still, seeing people nod, cheering her on, ignited a flame of hope in her heart. Just as the meeting reached its peak, Clara caught a glimpse of someone lurking at the edge of the barn. Two suited figures, faces austere, observing silently. A chill ran down her spine. What were they doing here? And then, she heard a comprehensive exchange that would burst her intentions wide open. The words drifting towards Clara were sharp, cutting through the joyous atmosphere like a knife. "They're planning to shut this down," one of the suited figures said, his voice low and menacing. "This uprising is a threat. We can't let them sow discord." Her blood ran cold. Sammy noticed her distressed expression and leaned closer. "What's wrong?" "Those men, they're trying to intimidate us," she whispered, eyes darting to the strangers who still peered with cold scrutiny. "Let us not let them ruin this moment," Sammy replied, his voice firm. But Clara could feel a shift in the air. The excitement that had filled the barn now cast a shadow of unease. Old Mr. Thompson stepped forward, urging the crowd to share their stories. "Let them hear our voices. We've felt the sting of loss. We've seen our town suffer. This is our time to stand together." The reactions from the audience were mixed. Some faces were lit with passion, while others betrayed fear and uncertainty. Clara's heart raced as she watched the crowd. Would they stand or falter? One by one, stories poured forth like a precious river. A mother who could barely afford groceries shared about losing her job. A teenager spoke of her dreams held back by the burden of family responsibilities. The tales wove a tapestry of struggle, loss, and an indomitable will to fight back. With each story, Clara felt a surge of hope. They were brave, each vulnerability shared a small yet strong thread binding them together. Yet, the figures remained outside, an ever-looming threat in the periphery of her mind. As the crowd grew louder, Clara's confidence surged. "We won't be silenced," she shouted, her voice rallying the energy in the barn. "We are stronger together than they think. We're not just fighting for a festival, we're fighting for our lives, our dignity, and our future." The cheers echoed louder, the applause thunderous. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the chilling presence of the suited men. What would be their next move? Suddenly, one of the figures stepped forward into the barn's light. His presence commanded attention. Clara's pulse quickened as he surveyed the crowd. "You think your little meeting can change anything?" He laughed, a dark sound that scraped against her nerves. "You're barking up the wrong tree. You'll regret this, trust me." An electric silence filled the barn, a stark contrast to the fervor moments before. Clara looked at Sammy, whose expression had turned serious. "We can't let them intimidate us," he said, fire ignited in his eyes. "Then let us show them what we're made of," Clara replied, feeling the ground beneath her feet shift. She swallowed hard, aware that the stakes had skyrocketed. "Together, we will stand our ground," she declared, raising her fist. "But we need a plan. We need to be prepared." As the crowd rumbled with murmurs of agreement, Clara felt a new determination settle in her bones. All around her, she could feel their collective strength, a mosaic of resolved faces. They wouldn't be defeated. But in that fleeting moment of unity, a deeper concern gnawed at Clara's heart. What would happen tonight when the shadows crept deeper? The suited men's chilling words echoed in her mind, a reminder of the battles yet to come. As the meeting drew to a close, Clara knew a storm was brewing on the horizon, and the real fight was just beginning. Who would stand with her when the time came? Would the fire of the heart be enough to withstand the forces of fear? In that very moment, those questions pulled at her soul, leaving her with a heavy weight. Would they all be ready to face the truth? The dim light of the barn flickered as the evening settled in, but its glow did nothing to chase away the tension that hung in the air. Clara felt it creeping in like a fog, wrapping around her heart. The meeting had ended, yet the weight of those chilling words lingered. "You'll regret this." As the last of the townsfolk trickled out, she turned to Sammy, who was still visibly tense. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The urgency in her tone matched the turmoil in her heart. "We need to spread the word," he said, his eyes flashing with determination. "More people need to know what is happening. If they're trying to silence us, we can't just sit back and wait. We have to act." Clara nodded, a spark igniting in her chest. "You're right. This is bigger than just tonight. We need to gather everyone again. But we have to do it carefully, without alarming them. We can meet at Millie's Cafe tomorrow. It's south, the one place we know is safe." The cafe was a community hub, a place where friends talked and laughter spilled over from the windows. Clara felt a sense of warmth at the thought, but soon reality crashed over her again. What if the suited men were already watching? What if they were tracking them? Sammy. Clara hesitated, her brows furrowing. What if they're here already? What if they've already told the police? He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We can't let fear control us. If we don't take a stand now, they'll walk all over us. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore, we're fighting for everyone." Her heart raced at the thought. They weren't just lost in their individual battles anymore, they were part of something much larger, a force to be reckoned with. Clara glanced around the barn, seeing the remnants of what had just unfolded. The energy was still palpable, but so was the risk. As the two left the barn and stepped into the night, Clara noticed shadows shifting behind the trees lining the road. An uneasy feeling washed over her as she tightened her grip on Sammy's arm. She could almost feel eyes on her back, piercing and full of malice. "Let us hurry," she urged. They walked quickly, hearts pounding in sync. Any noises felt amplified: the rustling leaves, the creaking of old wood. Each sound whispered warnings, urging them forward. When they reached Sammy's truck, Clara glanced back at the barn, now just a silhouette against the starlit sky. It felt like her second home, a place where voice met strength. Yet now, it seemed tainted by danger. Once inside the cab, Clara turned to Sammy. "What if they come after us? What if we lose people we care about?" "We have to make them understand," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We can show them that we're stronger. Together, we'll protect each other. We have to believe that." His words filled her with a flicker of hope, yet dread gnawed at the edges of her mind. As they drove off, Clara made a silent vow. They would stand up. They would speak out. But as she glanced into the rearview mirror, she could have sworn she saw a figure lurking among the trees, shadows dancing in the night. Fear prickled at her skin. Would they have what it took to prevail against those who sought to silence them? Or would lurking threats turn their collective strength into isolation? Tomorrow loomed ahead, but so did the uncertainty of who would be with them when they rose to face the truth. Clara's heart raced with anticipation, but beneath it all, there was a chilling dread of feeling that the real fight was not just against silence, but against the darkness closing in around them. What awaited them in the light of day? The sun struggled to rise the next day, shrouded in gray clouds that seemed to mirror the anxiety that hung over Clara. She wiped the remnants of sleep from her eyes and glanced at the clock. It was later than she intended, and fear gripped her stomach at the thought of what might happen if they didn't gather everyone quickly. "Sammy," she called, her voice shaky as she stepped into the kitchen, "are you ready?" He didn't respond immediately. His face was drawn, worry etched deeper with every passing second. "Yeah," he finally said, his voice low. "But we need to be careful." Clara's heart felt heavy. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the bitter aroma filling the air, momentarily overpowering the sense of dread. As the liquid warmed her hands, she wondered what this day would bring. Would the townsfolk stand with them? Or would fear snuff out their hope? Getting dressed felt like wearing armor. She chose a simple blue blouse that brightened her face, a small act of rebellion against the darkness that threatened them. A reminder that they were still alive. That they had a cause. Millie's is usually packed on a Sunday. We can't let them know we're gathering for a protest if Clara trailed off, the thought too frightening to voice. If they're watching, Sammy finished for her. He pulled on a jacket, the creaking zipper echoing like a gunshot in the quiet room. "We'll just say it's a meet-up, like any other day." Their plan was simple, but Clara felt nerves coiling tighter in her chest the closer they got to the cafe. The streets were eerily empty, a stark contrast to the bustling energy they'd known before. She exchanged worried glances with Sammy, whose grip on the steering wheel was tight enough to pale his knuckles. As they pulled into the cafe parking lot, Clara could see a few familiar faces. A couple of regulars milled about, sipping their coffee as if nothing was amiss. That was good, right? The calm before the storm. But her heart couldn't shake the unease that settled over her like a thick fog. "We should wait a few minutes," she suggested, glancing through the windshield. The cafe looked inviting, a welcoming yellow and white checkered umbrella casting shade on the tables outside. But underneath that charm lay uncertainty. "Let us make sure no one is watching us." Sammy nodded, but his eyes were already scanning the parking lot, the same vigilance she felt wrapped around her. She followed his gaze and soon noticed a man in a black coat leaning against a nearby post, engrossed in his phone but somehow alert, as if he were poised to pounce. Swallowing hard, they exchanged a look. "What if we're too late?" Clara murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. "We're not late," Sammy said firmly. "We have to go in. Show them we're not afraid. You're ready, Clara. We need each other." Taking a deep breath, Clara nodded. "Okay. Together." As they stepped out of the truck, her heart beat loud in her ears. Was this it? Would today change everything? Or would it simply confirm their worst fears? Inside, the buzz of conversation enveloped them, but Clara felt the weight of the man outside on her back, pressing her down. She scanned the room, desperately searching for signs of solidarity, familiar faces ready to voice their fears alongside her. Then she spotted Millie, her curly hair bouncing as she worked the espresso machine. Clara hoped Millie would offer a smile, a feeling of normalcy. But she caught an anxious look in her eyes as she glanced toward the door, and Clara's heart sank. "Sammy, look," she whispered. Their conversation fell away as hesitance and resolve tangled in the air. Were these friends or potential foes? Just then, the cafe door swung open with a creak, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. Would it be a neighbor with unyielding support, or was it someone sent to silence them? As she held her breath, reality shattered around her, revealing not just the threat of their meeting, but the very fabric of their community unraveling. Outside, a storm brewed. Inside, all they could do was hope for a miracle. Would anyone stand with them? Would they find the courage to raise their voices? The moment of truth was here, and everything hung in the balance. Clara took a step forward, ready but terrified. Would the heart of their town echo their cause, or would the silence suffocate them? The moment hung heavy in the air as the door swung shut behind whoever had just entered. Clara's eyes darted toward the figure, heart racing. It was Dave, one of the town's stalwarts, known for his deep voice and laughter that could fill any room. But as he stepped inside, she noticed something different about him: attention in his posture, a wariness in his gaze. "Clara, Sammy," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Dave, we need to talk," Clara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She caught Sammy's eye as they took a few hesitant steps into the cafe, trying to gauge the mood of the small gathering around the tables. Most of the patrons remained focused on their drinks, but whispers flitted between a few of them. Clara's stomach knotted tighter. "There's a lot going on, isn't there?" Dave said, his eyes shifting to the window where the man in the black coat stood unmoving. "They're watching us more closely every day, and it's getting dangerous." "Then we have to act now," Clara urged, the urgency in her tone drawing more eyes toward their little group. "We can't let fear dictate what we do, what we stand for." She sensed the room tilting, a collective breath held in anticipation. Millie, still behind the counter, glanced up warily. Her hands trembled slightly around the steaming milk pitcher. It was a small movement, but it spoke volumes. "Clara, there's a risk," Dave began, but she cut him off. "Of course, there's a risk. But we're out of options. If we stay silent, we lose everything. Our homes, our families. We need to stand together, right now." Sammy stepped closer to her, the warmth of his presence urging her on. He raised his voice slightly, "We're all scared. But if just one of us takes that first step, it might give the rest of us the courage to join in. We can't be the town that hides in the shadows." Clara felt a surge of conviction swell in her chest. She could see others starting to lean in, connecting with what she was saying. Yet that man outside still lingered in the periphery of her mind. What if they retaliate? One of the regulars asked, concern etching deep lines in her face. What if we lose our businesses? Another murmured, glancing at Millie, who was silent beside her espresso machine. Clara held up her hands, a gesture of calm in the storm of uncertainty. "We might lose things that are important, yes. But if we don't act now, we'll lose so much more. We'll lose our sense of community. Our spirit." As if on cue, the man in the black coat shifted, his attention flickering toward the cafe door. Clara felt a chill run down her spine. Maybe he was a threat, but the real danger lay in doing nothing at all. "What we're fighting for is bigger than all of us," she declared, her voice rising defiantly. "It's about protecting what it truly means to live in this town." Clara's heart thundered, electricity sparking in the room as eyes began to light up with understanding and a flicker of hope. Could they really rally together? Millie stepped forward, her voice wavering at first but growing stronger. "I've seen what they do to those who stand alone. But together, we might just have a chance. If we unite now, when it matters most." A ripple of agreement spread through the small group, profiles softening as determination took hold. They were hesitant, but something had ignited within them. Clara felt her hope blend with theirs, a rush of warmth pulsing through her veins. But just as she thought they might move forward, a sudden crash interrupted, slicing through the fragile atmosphere. The cafe door flew open again violently, a gust of wind bringing in an unsettling chill. A figure stormed in, dark and furious, slicing through the light. Clara's heart dropped as she realized who it was. And just like that, the tension shifted once more, plunging back into uncertainty. What had she just awakened in her community? Would it lead them toward solidarity or plunge them deeper into chaos? The final battle loomed, and they might not all emerge unscathed. Clara braced herself, feeling the unexpected weight of their collective courage pushing her, urging her to act. Would they stand together against the rising storm, or would their voices be drowned out? Clara's breath caught as the figure stepped further into the cafe, bringing an unsettling energy with him. It was Tom, the town's former sheriff, his brow furrowed and fists clenched. The sight of him sent a wave of unease rippling through the crowd. He was no longer the jovial man who used to share stories of his youth around a fire. The pain of recent events had transformed him into someone unrecognizable. "Clara," Tom's voice boomed, deep and echoing against the cafe's walls. "You have no idea what you're doing." People shifted in their seats, tension sparking in the air. Clara felt her heart race again, a wild, frantic thrum. This was how she intended to rally her community. She had hoped for unity, not division. "Tom, we can't back down. This is our chance. Your chance to get us all hurt." He stepped closer, fire igniting in his eyes. "You think you can just stir the pot and not face the consequences? They're watching. And they won't just let us go." Sammy placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. She could feel the weight of his concern but also the steady heartbeat of bravery in him. "We can't keep living in fear, Tom. It's paralyzing us." The cafe was now silent, every eye on them, waiting for what would happen next. Clara searched the faces around her. Some were reflecting the fear Tom voiced, while others were leaning into the spark of hope she had ignited. Voices murmured, some in agreement, others brimming with doubt. "They'll break us. You want to risk everything?" Tom shouted, taking another step forward, his expression darkening. Clara could see cracks beginning to form in his resolve, his fear shadowed by a deeper longing to protect what remained of their town. "What does it mean to protect us if we suffer in silence?" Clara continued, drawing strength from Sammy and Millie. "If we don't fight for our future, our children won't even know what freedom looks like. Is that the world we want?" Tom faltered, visibly wrestling with her words. Clara could see the spark of recognition flicker in his eyes, a glimmer that perhaps he had once believed in these values too. A woman in the corner, who had been silent until now, stood up. "My family has been here for generations. I can't bear to see it crumble just because we're scared we should take a stand." Encouraged, others began to nod and murmur in agreement. Clara felt a swell of hope. They could be stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness outside. But just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, and Clara's heart dropped. The cafe's windows rattled, and she instinctively turned toward the noise. The man in the black coat was gone, and instead, a group of shadows loomed at the doorway, threats moving like storm clouds, ready to engulf the light they had just found. Fear and doubt surged through the gathering, drowning out their hopes. Tom's gaze darted to the door, and Clara could feel the panic rolling off him. "They're here," he whispered, urgency lacing his voice. Was this the moment they would crumble under pressure? Or would Clara's voice continue to resonate in hearts hardened by fear? She could feel the stakes rising, and her pulse quickened. "Together, we stand," she called, hoping to drown out the doubt. But the shadows surged forward, mouths twisted in anger and eyes simmering with menace. Would they truly stand against this weight of despair, or would they falter just as Tom had feared? Clara's voice wavered, leaving a lingering question in the air. How could they be brave enough to face the dark tide approaching, and would they rise above the storm or be swept away? The door burst open, the sound sharp and demanding, cutting through the thick tension in the cafe. Clara's heart raced as the shadows stepped inside, 6 figures cloaked in menace, their faces obscured, but their intentions clear. Anger radiated from them like heat from a wildfire, and her instinct screamed at her to flee. But Clara stood tall, refusing to let fear dictate her fate. "Clara!" shouted one of the newcomers, his voice reverberating through the small space. "You think you can just rally people without consequences? We're here to remind you of your place." The crowd shrank back, eyes darting between Clara and the intruders. Tom stepped slightly in front of her, his fists still clenched, a protective instinct flaring within him. "You'll have to go through me first." he declared, a fierce determination igniting in his voice. But Clara knew better. She saw the defiance in Tom's eyes, but also the underlying dread. They couldn't just be reactive anymore, they needed to take charge. "Tom, we need to show them we're not afraid," she urged, adrenaline surging through her veins. One of the shadows moved toward Tom, towering over him with a menacing sneer. "Afraid? You should be. We've got a message for all of you." He gestured to the rest of the group. "This town doesn't belong to the likes of you." The cafe felt like it was shrinking, the air thick with oppression. Clara could feel the heat of her own rising anger. She couldn't let despair corrode their spirit. "We're not here for you to push us around," she shouted, her voice trembling with equal parts fear and fury. "We've suffered too long in silence." A murmur ran through the crowd, a ripple of doubt replaced by a flicker of resolve. Humans are built to fight against oppression. Clara could feel this collective truth weaving itself through the corners of the cafe. "Let them hear us!" Shout a voice from the back, emboldened by her words. It was a young man who had once been all too quiet, now breaking through with fire. "What do you think this is?" The leader sneered, pointing an accusatory finger at Clara. "You think they'll stand with you? You're dreaming. Better to dream than to live in chains." Clara retorted, feeling a wave of support gather behind her. She saw eyes shining with determination, saw fists clenching in solidarity. "Together. We can stand together." She called out again, her voice stronger, piercing through the fear. The more she spoke, the more they reacted. But just as they began to resolve, the leader raised a weapon, a glint of metal catching the dim light of the cafe. "You're done. Leave or face the consequences." Clara's heart skipped a beat as the sight of the weapon sent waves of terror through the gathering. Yet, against the swell of fear, a calm determination steadied her breath. She clasped her hands tightly in front of her, feeling Sammy's steady presence next to her. "Clara." Sammy's voice broke through, low but urgent, as the crowd around them began to shift uncomfortably. "What if we can't know? We can't back down," she urged, confidence surging anew. "We must do this for ourselves." In that moment, the cafe transformed, it felt alive with a sense of purpose that had been absent for far too long. They were not just individuals, they were a community. And together, they were stronger. As murmurs of agreement filled the room, the leader of the shadows sneered again, but now it lacked its bite. Clara could see the uncertain shifts in his crew. "So be it," he growled, his voice laced with contempt, "let's see how brave you all are when it counts." Just then, the lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced wildly across the walls. Clara's stomach twisted. Was this just the beginning of an even greater struggle? What would they have to face next? And as uncertainty loomed, one question echoed in her mind: could they truly survive this storm together, or would this be their breaking point? The tension exploded in the cafe like a thunderclap, looping around Clara and her friends with a suffocating grip. But as the shadows drew closer, something extraordinary happened. Grounded in the resolve that had ignited during their rallies, Clara felt the spirit of her town encapsulated within her. This was her moment to push through fear and become the voice they all desperately needed. "Together!" Clara shouted, lending her voice the strength of 1,000 hearts. The words echoed, rising above the chaos, piercing through fear like a beacon in a storm. The townsfolk around her, flanking all sides, began to chant. "Together! Together!" It reverberated off the walls, gaining momentum, passion coursing through every person present. Clara felt it lift her, bolstering their unity against the menacing figures before them. They were all standing as one, a tapestry woven with the threads of sacrifice and hard work. "Enough!" The leader of the shadows spat, but his voice shook with uncertainty. Clara saw it, the flicker of doubt in his eyes, and it fed the fire in her heart. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Clara cried out, her voice steady as a rock, spurred by the unwavering beliefs of those behind her. We are not just a town of individuals living in fear. We are a family, woven together by our stories, our struggles, and our dreams. In that moment, the brewing storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest of courage within the cafe. Even Tom, once consumed by fear, straightened his back and stood beside Clara. I won to let fear silence what we've fought for, he declared, his voice booming like a battle cry. A town of laborers and artisans. That's who we are. Someone from the back shouted. The room swelled with fervor, voices rising one after the other, each declaration pushing back against despair. No more hiding, shouted Millie, her courage igniting the crowd further. We will not let our stories be buried under the dust of commerce. We deserve to celebrate who we are. With renewed energy flowing through their veins, every participant felt the collective strength lift their spirits to new heights. Clara began to chant alongside them. No more silence. The walls of the cafe trembled with the weight of their voices, diluting the air of dread that had suffocated them for far too long. The shadows surrounding them, still imposing, looked wary now. Tension radiated from Clara's heart, yet the cacophony of unity pushed her inexorably forward. Slowly, the leader took a cautious step back, eyeing the rallying townsfolk, measuring the power stirring within them. Then it happened. Clara took a bold step forward, facing the leader directly. This fight isn't just for us. It's for everyone who has been buried beneath the weight of expectations and greed, for every child and parent who dared to dream. Those words struck a chord. Behind her, the chant quickened, engulfing the men as they paled against the momentum of courage. Let us remind them we are here. We are real. And we will not be silenced. Clara urged, her voice a fierce call to arms. With that, the roar of unity bellowed back, courage sending a jolt through the men enough to make them stumble. Go! One of the shadows barked, panic replacing arrogance. The men attempted to retreat, but the spell had been cast, the town wouldn't let them escape so easily. Not until you understand. Clara shouted, summoning her pitch one last time, fueled by desperation and hope. Our voices are louder than your threats. Tom, bolstered by Clara's fire, took another giant step forward. You may believe you're above us, but we have something you don't: our hearts, our stories. And those will never be quiet. With that rallying cry echoing through the cafe, the group surged forward, bolstered with the resolve to stand tall together. The men had no choice but to retreat, faltering under the weight of a community ignited with purpose and strength. As the door burst open a final time, the shadows disappeared into the chaos of the outside world, swallowed by the roar of defiance that filled the air. Clara stood there, gasping for breath, the weight of recent events hitting her all at once, but beneath it all resided an undeniable thrill, the feeling of triumph renewing her spirit. There was no way to predict what awaited them next, but she knew one thing: they had awakened a power in each other they didn't know existed. As the cafe filled with applause and shouts of joy, Clara turned to Sammy, her heart swelling with gratitude. We did it. We stood together. We still have a long fight ahead, he said, taking her hand, eyes burning bright with pride. But today we showed them what we could do. Around them, laughter erupted. Stories flowed, hearts soared, and they all knew this was just the beginning. Their voices harmonized under the warmth of their resolve, brightening everything cloaked in doubt. Together, they would reclaim their voices, their dreams. The battle had sparked a change, a reawakening of their collective spirit. The sun had broken through the clouds, pouring light into the cafe. Clara looked around at every face glowing with resilience and light, each word drumming in her veins. They were no longer living in fear, they were forging ahead, stoking the flames of a brighter future. For the first time in a long while, Clara felt a smile stretch across her face. This was their moment. Together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and move you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this incredible community. Comment below your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your thoughts mean the world to us. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation only true fans understand. Let us stand together for every tale worth telling.